Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Essence of Life. How are you guys doing? Uh, Thank you for watching all my videos, especially the one that I posted last time on how to read minds, and I've been singing a lot of songs as well. So let's continue the most interesting topic of my channel, I would say, which is how to read minds, right? So I started off this topic in my last video to give you guys some tips on how to read minds and how interesting that could get, right? So I'm going to give you three beautiful tips today on how to read minds, right? So this, so when you actually start off on how to read minds, it can get complicated because the other person should not know that you're reading mind, number one, and number two, uh, uh, he should not have any clue about how you're doing this either, right? So the first tip that I would want to give you guys on how to read others' minds is by asking questions. Not just by asking questions, but the right kind of questions, I would say. So what are the right kind of questions, right? You might be wondering, what do I ask? Let's say, for example, if I'm meeting a person for the first time, maybe somebody at work today, right? And I'm going on for a coffee with him, right? So we can just start off a conversation like, what do you like the most? Uh, what kind of coffees do you like? You can start your conversation with always the best topic that you can start with a stranger is talking about nature, because nature is something that everyone likes, right? But that's not going to be very useful because some might like to talk about nature, some might be not interested so much. So nature is really not the right kind of way on how to read minds, but then yes, that's a good conversation how to start off the topic so that you get to know on more questions, right? And then what are the kind of questions that you should ask? You should ask all those kind of questions which are related to not especially to his personal life, because when you meet the person for the first time, you cannot expect that he or she would be really open to answer or even like to talk about the person's stuff. I mean, that's how people are, right? So never ask anybody about their personal things right on the very first conversation, because that would be a big flop show, and you cannot read his or her mind, because they would really not let you in. So you need to get into someone's mind. So the right kind of questions, what do you think would be? The right kind of questions, according to me, would be, again, very in general kind of questions. Like, what are the kind of movies that you like? What are the kind of hangout places? What do you normally do in the weekends? You know what? These are some general questions that you might have never thought that could actually lead to read others' mind, because I'm sure you when you meet a person like a stranger, you keep asking all these questions, but you might have never noticed that in this you can also read mind, because how the way the person answers, the way the person describes. If the person answers to a question as yes or a no, you know that person is less talkative. If a person is describing it, the person is more descriptive, right? Which means the person likes explaining things. And also the variety of topics on which you can really ask questions, because questions are the right platform to read minds, but you should really know what kind of questions to ask, right? There could be a lot of topics that you might be interested in. Sports could be related to entertainment, could be related to movies, could be related to current affairs, could be related to politics, right? So the way the other person responds to you, right? And depending upon the answer, I would come up with examples in my next video, but then just remember asking the questions and just observing the way he or she is answering to you, or bringing that conversation up front to you, could really tell you a lot about that person, right? So that's number one. asking the right kind of questions, right? And tip number two, or trick number two to read mind is if you're a chess player. I'm sure not everyone is a chess player, but I would say chess is something that would really, really sharpen your mind because it improves the focus, right? And only if you focus on the other person, you will know the way he or she is answering, based on which you can really understand the person very well. And in a chess, the most important thing is what is the other person's move going to be, right? So that's the biggest trick of why anybody would win chess. Only if you know that the other person's move better than your move. I mean, you might have 10 plans in mind, but the other person might have maybe 2, 3, or maybe just one. But you should just know what that plan is so that you can really flop that off with your plan, right? So if you play chess, you can really improve your focus better, and the most important thing is you got to be a very good listener. Only if you listen you can read mind. There are a lot of people who just don't want to listen because they're too impatient, and they just have a conversation just for the sake of having it. But you never know when a person wants to read you or a person just wants to have a conversation. But you should really not make both of these things look very different, right? Because as I told you earlier, the person should never know that you're reading his mind. That's the golden rule of reading minds, right? So what is my third tip going to be? I'm sure, there could be a lot of questions, and I welcome all my viewers of my channel to ask me as many questions as possible in the comment section, or you can also send an email to me. You can find the email in my about, so that you can also read about me a bit, and then you can also send an email to me, but I would prefer doing it over the comment section so that everyone gets the tips and tricks of how to read minds, right? Because it adds great value to life, and it's interesting, right? I mean, that's how it is to me. And what about the third point? The third point could be or should be, this could be over after asking questions, after you really have sharpened your mind on observing the other person, after being a good listener, understanding how the other person could react to certain circumstances. You should really be able to catch the weak points. When I say weak points, could be the emotional part of it, but you should never play with people's emotions. Keep that in mind. Never play with anybody's emotions. But it's good to know if emotional factor is something where you can really read mind, but don't take advantage of that person, right? You should never do that, because reading mind is a great skill, but you should never misuse that. That's my message that I carry all throughout my videos. So try to understand the person by what his weak points are. Some would have an emotional weak point. Some would have a weak point of his fans. Maybe I'm a big fan of somebody like Amir Khan. He's a big fan of Sachin Tendulkar. That could be a point of weakness. Somebody's point of weakness could be food, because they love food so much that when you keep talking about food, whether or not you like it, they really want to talk to you, and then you can really try to read that person's mind better. So yes, these are some things that you constantly need to practice, right? It sounds interesting that if you ask right kind of questions, you can read mind. It sounds interesting if you're a chess player, and if you have a sharp mind, or if you're a good listener, you can really understand people's mind. It also sounds interesting that if you know the other's weak points, you can read minds. But all these needs to be really applied well. There's a lot of difference between reading theory and applying that in real life, correct? So you should be good at the later, and you should also be good in theory, of course. So yes, so these are the 3 tips that I would like to share today in today's video on how to read minds. Please feel free to ask me any questions that you have. And yes, let me repeat the 3 tips. Number 1, ask questions, the right kind of questions. Number 2, if you're a chess player, you don't need to do anything because you know what to do. If you're not, try to play chess because that could really get you a focus. And be a good listener. That's the second tip. And number three, try to catch hold of the weak points of the other person by talking to him or her. So I'm sure try to you're going to apply all these three tips and tricks in your real life. Apply it right today or tomorrow on somebody and let me know how it works or how it didn't work. If it worked, I'm happy. If it didn't work, I would also want to tell you where you went wrong or how to correct that, so that you achieve what you want to achieve. Right? Perfect. Sounds good. And thank you. That's it for my video today. I will keep posting my videos more as and when I come up with some more tricks. I have a lot of tricks, right? And I also have the golden trick, which I'm going to share in the next couple of videos to come from, and that's about it. So let me know if you have any questions, and thank you very much for watching my video. So keep expecting videos from me on how to read minds more and more, and also I keep singing, so please feel free to give me a feedback. Thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.